ended a miserable week right about there.
Oh, I'll swear this land is almost wholly unfit for cultivation. To a farmer, it'd be just like a desert.
Well, let's put Major Long and his 1820 opinions to rest. Fact is, Great American Desert was printed on maps for over 35 years. Most of this area east of the Rockies. The Major didn't figure on the people who settled here. Almost 1 million acres of the finest farmland in the country. But believe me, they had to work to make it that good. They had to coax the land, with water mostly. And it's the clever system that they and the government built that I, and all the characters I'll be playing, want to tell you about.
It's gold! It's gold! I tell you, it's gold! Gold! Woo-wee! It's gold!
Well, that got the people coming out here all right. They didn't exactly pick the gold off the ground, as some of them had expected to do. No, it was very hard to come by, and so was food. Expensive and scarce because of the long haul from the east. Maybe that's when the gold seekers and others decided to settle the land we're talking about and grow their own food. Nature's green gold. Wasn't long, though, before these people bumped into a problem. Good land, but hardly any rain. Only 12 to 13 inches a year. Less than 1/4 the amount averaged in central and eastern agricultural states. This part of the West had full rivers and streams in the spring, less and less flow in the summer. And these conditions were complicated by occasional years of drought. That's about the time the irrigation started, and ditch digging and reservoir building to reserve or save surplus spring runoff water for when it was crucially needed later. Why, in 1870, when the Union colony came, the place is called Greeley now, to be followed by others at Fort Collins, Loveland, Longmont, and the rest, there were already a dozen or so irrigation systems in operation. Everybody caught the ditch digging fever, but it was soon pretty clear that direct stream flow would go only so far. Then there was a flurry of reservoir building to catch the off-season and flood flows. For about 20 years, over 60 reservoirs were built. Mutual stock companies were formed, water rights legalized, everything quite orderly. Yes, there was a hitch. Always is. The land under irrigation increased faster than the water supply could handle. Farmers on the east side of the Continental Divide said, "How about all that water on the west side? Much of it is just surplus over there. Down here is where we really need it." Oh, the dream of diverting water from the Colorado River over on the west goes back to maybe 1880. But things really didn't get going until 1933. There's no way to tell you the amount of work that was done. Just look at these documents. They represent just a small part of the work of men in this area, of senators and congressmen and reclamation engineers. It's hard to believe the amount of detail involved. All the meetings, the reports, the persuading of legislators, the negotiations. The organization of a Water Users Association in 1934. A group that had to raise money by selling stock and by getting contributions from business, from railroads, from ditch companies and cities. But the idea was making headway, and the Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District, under state law, was set up by an overwhelming public vote. Finally, in 1937, Congress authorized the Colorado Big Thompson as a reclamation project. Well, all this work created a classic water diversion and management system. Let's take a look at the large areas and the problems involved in fitting together the jigsaw pieces of surplus water, of rugged terrain, and agricultural land. Here is the thirsty farmland. And this is the Colorado River. This is the Continental Divide, the barrier that separates them.
This is where the water from Grand Lake starts through the Adams Tunnel. In about that direction, a little over 13 miles, straight through Granite Mountains. I came to work on the project, in 1946. That was about the time the tunnel was finished. Well, come with me and I'll show you how big that tunnel is.
It's 9 feet 9 inches in diameter, big enough to drive a Jeep through. So precise was the engineering that when the east and west bores met in the middle of the tunnel, the difference in line and elevation was less than the height of a penny. Thinking of the tunnel now, I'm reminded of the men who worked long hours in the dark underground, moving ahead inches at a time, aware of the dangers of being crushed in a cave-in or drowning in an unexpected underground stream, yet not one single life was lost. During the war years, the work was slowed down and sometimes stopped because of material and manpower shortages. But by 46, we got the rest of the project going.
It was agreed that the water in Grand Lake was to be held at virtually the same level. But the lake would lose water through the tunnel. So, in a manner of speaking, Grand Lake was enlarged by damming the Colorado and forming Shadow Mountain Reservoir. Now, to make the whole collection system work, a final big reservoir was needed. It so happened that below Shadow Mountain there was a great natural basin. The Reclamation engineers formed the dam and dikes. Millions of cubic yards of earth and rock they used to create the main storage area, Lake Granby. Willow Creek was another source of water for Granby. A dam was constructed there, and the collected water could be run into Granby. I guess run isn't quite the right word. Willow Creek Reservoir was 170 feet lower than Granby. The water had to be lifted that distance by a pump, so it could run into the big reservoir.
We're not finished with the pumping, not by any means. You see, Granby is almost 200 feet lower than Shadow Mountain, so the water has to be lifted again, this time in great quantities. The job of the great heart of the system, you might say. A pumping plant as tall as a 16-story building. Now, it doesn't look or seem that tall because 3/4 of it is underground. Imagine water flowing through 3 conduits, each 7 feet in diameter, and being pumped into a gigantic pipe, 11 feet in diameter.
There are 3 vertical shaft pumps, and each one is turned by a 6,000 horsepower motor. Can you guess just how much water these pumps lift? In just 2 minutes, they supply enough for all of one person's needs for his entire lifetime. This is the way the snow water is collected. Run off into Shadow Mountain and down into Granby. From Willow Creek up into Granby. Stored water from Granby into Shadow Mountain to flow across Grand Lake and through the Adams Tunnel to the east slope. After the water leaves the tunnel, it drops more than half a mile to Flatiron. Then it's pumped up into Carter Lake on one side, and on the other flows along the Hanson Feeder Canal and into Horsetooth.
The water's been pretty lazy and dreamy over on the west slope. But when it comes through the tunnel, here on the east, that's when it has to go to work. You can't see much water past this regulating pond because it travels underground for about 2 miles and comes out in kind of a holding reservoir with a pretty name, Mary's Lake.
Under the ground it goes again, and down the mountain in some huge pipes called penstocks through the Estes power plant into Lake Estes. The lake was made by putting Olympus Dam across the Big Thompson River. That's how the project got half its name, you see. The Colorado Big Thompson. From Lake Estes, the water travels 10 miles and drops 1,000 feet into Pinewood Reservoir. Then down the penstocks another 1,000 feet or so into Flatiron. Carter Lake is the first major reservoir on the eastern slope. But we have that difference in elevation problem again. Carter is 240 feet above Flatiron. You're familiar with the solution, I know. A pump lifts the water that distance up through a pressure tunnel. However, something new has been added. If Flatiron needs water, the flow in the tunnel can be reversed, making Carter the source of supply. The pump now serves as a generator. It's a clever arrangement. From Flatiron, the water flows north by gravity along the Charles Hanson Feeder Canal and on to Horsetooth. You'll see where the water goes in a minute. But now, let's take a look at the power aspect of the project.
First of all, let me say that I am pleased to know that people are interested in seeing how we generate electric power. Now, my job as project manager with the Bureau of Reclamation is usually backstage. So it's really nice to have visitors. I'm sure you know that all 6 of these power plants are hydroelectric. The water drops half a mile or so. On the way down, it's directed through the turbines that turn generators. There are few systems that can produce electricity more efficiently and with absolutely no pollution. The best part of it is we will never be short of this water energy because it's renewed each year from the high mountain snows.
Together, these produce enough electricity to supply all the needs of about 100,000 homes through some 700 miles of high-voltage transmission lines like these, which not only carry the power generated here to our customers, but are the central power link between the eastern and western United States. Flatiron, at the bottom of the system, has 3 generators like Estes, but produces 60% more power. And remember, one of the generators can be reversed to pump water into Carter Lake.
You bet, Jerry. Hello, Granby.
The CBT is a complex system, and I suppose we could call this dispatch room here at Flatiron the brain. We keep track of all power demands here and, of course, release the proper amounts of water to the reservoirs for delivery to the farmers. This dispatching center not only controls the Colorado Big Thompson, but also the Bighorn and North Platte systems in Wyoming.
We'll never run short of water energy, I said, and that's true. But to have the right amount of water in the right reservoir at the right time, well, we're rather like jugglers. You'll remember the 3 gigantic reservoirs we have, Granby on the west, and on the east, Horsetooth and Carter. Now, we can release water from Granby anytime we wish and in any amount. But releases from Horsetooth and Carter are regulated through demand during the growing season. In an average year, the water levels are about like this in October, the start of the winter power operation. From October until April, the water is put to work producing great quantities of electric power. From April till mid-July, the big reservoir must be filled again. This is the water accumulation period. From July until October, the growing and maturing crops demand more and more water. By October, the storage system has completed the cycle. By spring, we know how much space we have in the reservoirs. We know the depth of the new snowpack and how much water it holds. But we don't know how fast the snow will melt, whether the year will be a wet one or a dry one, how much water the farmers will need, and how much power the users will need. Well, I must say we juggle all of these things pretty well.
First interview from the beginning, please.
Sure will.
Thanks.
Hello, Anna.
We here at the Water Conservancy District represent the farmers and the other water users. We're responsible for maintaining and updating our part of the system, seeing to it that proper water releases are made, adjusting water allocations and the like. Over the years, we'll pay the government 20% of the cost of the project. The sale of electricity pays the other 80%. In the end, the CBT will not have cost the public a dime, and will return additional revenue to the federal government. Let me show you something. The green area represents the Conservancy District, about 1.5 million acres of beautiful farmland. Do you know that the value of the crops each year is more than the cost of the CBT project? Horsetooth and Carter are banks. The money is water. It's a savings account that's never overdrawn. We see to that. Through a system of waterways, we supplement the natural sources. The Poudre River and north of it. The South Platte, the Big Thompson. Water is sold to cities and towns. Estes Park, Greeley, Fort Collins, Loveland. And out of Carter Lake, we send water south to Boulder and Longmont.
Take a closer look at how this water is used and what it does to serve agricultural, industrial, domestic, and community needs. Without Colorado Big Thompson water, there could be no predictable irrigation to ensure lush crops of vegetables, sugar beets, corn, and barley. Without Colorado Big Thompson water, there would not be alfalfa, silage, and water enough to support the area's $300 million livestock and poultry business. Nor would there be the spin-off of farmers' income to other businesses. Water from the CBT sold to communities provides for individual needs. It guarantees also the water necessary for all kinds of processes. And the power from the project not only lights the homes, but runs the appliances and makes the machinery go in some of the area's largest industries. In fact, Hewlett-Packard, IBM, Eastman Kodak, and other industries, with the income they generate, might have located elsewhere were it not for the water and electric plug-in provided through the Colorado Big Thompson project.
I used to worry a lot about that project. I'm Professor Belden. I retired a while ago. Used to teach botany, forestry, and the like. Nowadays, they'd probably call me an ecologist or an environmentalist. Well, it really doesn't matter. I have always done my very best to hold on to the natural beauty of this whole area. That's why I kept my eye on the Colorado Big Thompson project from the beginning. Well, CBT improved on old Mother Nature. It really did. Look, here I am fishing the Colorado below Lake Granby. A guaranteed steady flow of water. Before, it wasn't like that at all. You see, now there's always enough water released to make the stream better than natural for fishing. Look, let me show you something else. Perhaps some places should be left in their natural, undisturbed state. But I must say that often man is kinder to nature than the other way around. When man works with nature as a partner, the combination is unbeatable. A case in point. This is Grand Lake. As natural as can be. It's been there for ages. And this is Shadow Mountain Lake. This is man-made. It's only been there a few years. If you didn't know, could you tell which is natural? We enjoy much more beauty and a lot more water. And I think that's good for everybody.
And so it continues. Nature's white winter gift combines with man's work, refuting Major Long's prediction that this land would always be a great American desert, ensuring instead a perpetual cornucopia of sparkling water, of needed power, of luxuriant crops, a green echo of snow.